Welcome everybody. I'm delighted of being here today. It's also very exciting to be in the Bologna Children's Book Fair online edition for a live event. So thank you very much to everybody that is following us, and thank you very much to our jury members. This is a highly expected meeting with the jury of the Illustrators exhibition. And I'm very happy to give the floor to Elena Pasoli, Director of Bologna Children's Book Fair, for a first greeting.
Hello, hi everybody. Once again, we are welcoming you to the virtual Bologna. I do hope to be able to welcome you all in Bologna in person next year. The fair will be from 21st to 24th in March. Thank you very much for all those who are with us from their desk, and thank you very much to the jury, to these jurors, and also to Kyoko Matsuoka, who was member of the jury as well, but will be with us with a recorded contribution because she had another commitment at the museum she directs today. So as Marcella said, this is one of the most expected appointments usually in Bologna. I am happy to underline that the selected illustrators are now on show on our website at the BCBF galleries. That is a kind of private but open to the public museum of Bologna Children's Book Fair, and the exhibition, you can visit the exhibition until June 27th. And then the exhibition will go on tour. It will go to Japan as the biggest tradition of Bologna, more than 30 years. First to the Itabashi Art Museum, and then to other art museums across the country. Then, and this is thanks to the Itabashi Art Museum and to JBBY. Then the exhibition will go to South Korea, thanks to CCOC company that has been partnering with us since the last 3 years with great success. It's the new addition of the traditional family, but it is already 3 years. And then the exhibition will go to China. We are, I think, at the 5th or 6th year of this tour across China, where it will be shown in some 4 or 5 museums and galleries and public libraries. Then every year we add some more venues that we happen to meet in our work. So at the moment, I can't tell you, I don't know where we will bring the exhibition apart from in addition to these 3 countries, but for sure there will be more countries. So now I don't want to steal any time because I know that the illustrators will have to make questions. So I give the floor again to Marcella. Thank you very, very much to the jury. They did such a great job. It was unbelievable what they could do in this online difficult selection process. So thank you very much and enjoy the meeting.
Thank you, Elena Paisoli, Director of Bologna Children's Book Fair. Thank you for all this work that is being displayed. It's exciting. Everything is new. It's a great adventure. Thank you, Elena Paisoli. Thank you. And I am delighted of having here our jury members. They had a huge, huge job, as Elena Paisoli said before, because there were more than 3,000 candidates for this exhibition, and you made a selection of 306 that we're calling the finalists of this year. This is a new thing, and then you add the actual winners. The exhibition, the Illustrator exhibition in Bologna Children's Book Fair is very important. It's an occasion, a chance for also young or even acclaimed and published artists to show and to share their work. So the jury has always a great responsibility. I want to nominate our jury members. We have Beatrice Alemagna from Paris. We have, so of course, artist and illustrator and author of more than 40 books published in 25 different languages. So she's an acclaimed artist, and she also received many important awards. And then we have Atak, another great artist from Germany, Georg Barber, artist, graphic designer, illustrator from Berlin, so who brought his eye of an artist, but also of a professor, of a teacher of illustration, since he teaches at Burg Giebelstein University of Art and Design in Halle. And Susanne Karnel with us, publisher to Uts Publishing House from UK. After many years in publishing, in 2016, she launched her own imprint to Uts. We saw wonderful books. We gave awards to these books. And so it was an incredible chance to have your professional eye and experience and culture as a jury member for the Illustrators exhibition. Then we have Kyoko Matsuoka, our a friend of Itabashi Museums. She's just been nominated Associate Director and Curator at the Itabashi Art Museum, and that's why, as Elena Pasoli already anticipated, she cannot be with us directly connected, but we will have a video recorded from her and we will see it later on. But so great numbers, great job, an incredible process. As for the first year, the entire process was all online. So you had a platform, you could do in a first step selection individually, I think, and then you went on a discussion and select the winners of the exhibition. I would start asking to Maria Russo, who is editorial director of Min Edition, United States, an international publisher of picture books and bold books that we know very well, that also received many awards. She's also co-author of How to Raise a Reader of Workman, published in 2019. And Maria Russo was a children's books editor at the New York Times, and we know her article in many years. And I would like to start from you, Maria, thanking you for, of course, for your job and for your time, and asking you to introduce us to the process. What happened? What is a group of 5 professionals going through thousands of illustrations, and what were you looking for?
Well, thank you, Marcella. It was, as you said, it was a huge responsibility and a little more difficult. We were all sad that we couldn't come to Bologna and do it in person, and also to see the works on paper in the real work we felt was a bit of a loss. However, there was something to be said for doing it online, because we could also kind of move quickly through the entries, and we really made the best of it. We gathered online, 5 or 6 times. It was hours and hours, because we really felt we wanted the exhibition to be just as it is in the normal years in Bologna. When you go to the Bologna Children's Book Fair, and this exhibition is really the centerpiece. It's really the first thing that you want to see, and it holds together the whole fair. And we just felt we didn't want to lose that excellence and that feeling that these are important works that give you the view of everything happening in illustration. So we did it, and we're very happy with how it came out, even though, yes, it was difficult. So, as always, as you said, we were looking for really a range that would show across the world what's most exciting, who's doing their best work, and who has work that should be seen around the world that maybe isn't known yet. So it's always a combination then of people who are very experienced, who we know and love already. And then we want to introduce the new illustrators. We want to show people at the beginning of their career. Then we also need to balance the fiction and the nonfiction categories. These are 2 different modes of communicating, and we want to show the best in each. And then just as far as style goes, we really were looking for a range of styles. You know, we all have different tastes. We all come from different markets, different countries, different cultures, and have our personal tastes, but we also realize that we can learn from each other, and we learned from each other's tastes and each other's eye that coming from their own market. So we were looking for a range of different styles as well. But still, at the same time, given all of this diversity that we really wanted to maintain, we were looking for certain unified things in each entry. So we wanted, first of all, a sense that there was a story here in these 5 images. Can we get some idea or a strong idea of what the story is? We wanted, if possible, a character, if that was relevant. Is there a character here that we can identify? And then we wanted a feeling of originality. You know, this is really important, especially with the artists on the panel. Beatrice and Atak were very attuned to, is this person just following a trend, or is this person bringing us an original vision? And that's what we looked for. And then finally, there's a feeling that we all seem to always gravitate toward that I would call freedom. We wanted to find work that felt like it represented artistic freedom, that the person felt joy and independence as they were working. And that's maybe harder to explain, but you know it when you see it on the page. And I think we all felt, possibly during this time of quarantine and pandemic, when so much going on in the world was so constraining and sad, I think even more we looked for works that kind of exploded with a feeling of freedom. So that's our overall parameters. And then I could just, you know, you asked us to pick out just a few works that would be examples that we could speak about. So I could show you maybe 3 or 4 to give an example of works that we especially liked, and explain, you know, how we came to choose.
Sure, we'd love to. I have to say that the Illustrators exhibition is a great showcase. So it's very important, and thank you for pointing out so well the criteria that you followed, because it's very clear what you said. So a story, a character, feeling of originality, and artistic freedom and joy. This is very beautiful how you said it. Should I open Alireza Guldosian? Maria?
This was an example of someone that we were very excited to see among the entrants, because of course, Alireza Guldosian is a master. You know, here is someone who has been in the exhibition many times, who is known around the world as just the top notch of illustrators. And so we're so happy that artists like this are still sending their work to the exhibition. And of course, this is a work in progress, a book about a fire. And it comes across just so clearly. Look at the color, the intensity, and yet at the same time, the detail and emotion that Alireza is able to pack into these 5 images. It's just, you feel with this entry that there's an entire world and an entire culture being conveyed to us. And his touch and his colors just hit you right in the heart. And this was just a kind of, everyone was just blown away by this entry. And of course, we all wanted to include it. And of course, very much look forward to, this is a book that hasn't been published yet. We very much look forward to seeing the full work. You know, we like it when the entries make you want more of this work. So that was one of the experienced kind of masters that we just all were blown away by, and that you see. But, you know, I also wanted to point out some of the more new artists, illustrators who are just starting to make an impact, who we recognize as the future, and really exciting newcomers. Here is an Italian, Giovanni Colaneri, who has published a few books already, but it's really, we feel, at the beginning of something exciting. And we just loved his original style and look. What I love about his work is, on the one hand, it is very sophisticated, right? You could see every age really responding, and yet it's so sweet. too. You can see how a child can find a way into his work. So we just all thought this, and then the range, look at this range, the diverse scenes that he gives you, and yet you always have the center point. You can see his character in each image, so you have a feeling of emotional connection. And then, you know, just his attention to the detail is amazing, and yet so much freedom. You know, you feel a true free spirit at work with his illustration, but still someone who knows his technique and who knows his and who pays attention to the small details that make such a difference, especially with children. There's so much for a child. Look at this beautiful image.
Library. The library is a title. Yeah.
It's just so beautiful, and there's so much for a child to pay attention to. And of course, we love his use of color. He's just a wonderful, wonderful control of color. So, and this is one about someone on the young side, you know. So we like to have that balance of the master and then the young people coming in. We also were very concerned to have, as I said, a range of style, and so we had the painterly illustrators like those two, but then also we were really looking for graphic work too, because it's so important in illustration, the graphic sense, the organizing of the page, the courage to be simple. It's very brave to be so simple as this, and yet in this beautiful example from South Korea, we can see a character, right? We see there's actually a story going on, even though clearly the work is about organizing the space, organizing the page, very tight discipline on the color and on the line. And so this is another one that we just loved and thought was a real example of someone working in a style that crosses cultures. Everyone understands graphic language. It's almost primal human desire to look at pages that are organized in this way and neat, and but that make you think. You know, there's something a little bit more intellectual always about the graphic examples. So, you know, we feel people could spend a long time looking at these images and figuring out the system of them, and just enjoying. You know, this is also a beautiful muted use of color. We were not always looking for the bright, splashy. There's also, again, a lot of courage in being muted and quiet. And so this was just a wonderful example of all of those things coming together. So yeah, so those are, so I hope I gave just some sense of the range of what impressed us and what we would like to bring to the public in the exhibition.
Yes, it's very beautiful to listen to you and to your telling about the experience and the criteria, as I said before. If you want, I think you would like also, you wanted also to show them.
Oh, if you want, I mean, how am I doing on
yes.
time? I can do one more.
It's very beautiful.
This is another wonderful example from Uruguay, Daniela Bercochea, that we were struck by for that feeling of wildness. This, you know, it just seemed like someone who was really working with freedom and with boldness, and you could almost feel physically these images. They hit you in a way that feels physical, but at the same time delightful. At the same time, it's beautiful. There's just the sense of nature at its most wild and yet comforting in these images. And this image we thought was really brave and disturbing, especially in a market country like I'm here in the US, where we're a little bit more conservative with the imagery that people will allow in picture books. So I love to see someone so bold to show something like this. And so this was a good example of someone. And also we really, of course, are looking to open up to the world these smaller countries where maybe there aren't illustrators who are world famous yet. And we found in Uruguay a nice group of really interesting illustrators and so we were glad to be able to pick this one from that country.
It's fantastic. I mean, the work, the job of a jury is this one, to prepare an exhibition that is a showcase, that is a place where you choose and you discover also new artists. This for us is very important. Thank you very much for telling it so well. And I want to underline that what you were saying about the freedom, the feeling of freedom, of joy, of independence that you were looking for in illustrations. I think it's very important. I think it's one of the specific gift of our world. When I say our world, I mean, of course, the children's publishing community. So the sense, and then I will like to hear about that, Beatrice, and also Atak as author and Susanne as publisher. But I think that Children's International Publishing, it's a great space for independence, joy, and freedom of artists, of visual artists especially. So with this beautiful suggestions of Maria Russo, thank you for now. Thank you for showing us some images that you liked and some criteria. I would like now to give the floor to Beatrice Alemagna. So an artist that goes and is asked to do her choices and also to discuss her choices. How did you live the experience, and how your sensibility as an author and as an artist was playing a role into this process? Beatrice Alemagna.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Marcella. Yes, first of all, I would like to tell that it was a very huge honor for me to make this jury. And because for years, I really had dreamed of making this kind of exercise, and sitting down in front of those long tables, you know, full of images and illustrations, and almost smelling the smell of the different techniques and something like this. And that's the reason why I have to admit that in the beginning I was a little bit frustrated by this invitation, because you know, it was really my dream to make this. And for the first really completely online edition, it was such a sad moment for me. But this exercise, which it seemed long and almost infeasible in the beginning, in the end proved to be very surprising, in fact, because we learned each other as jury members, and we discovered a lot of very new way to see at the images and to discover details or something like this. For most of the images, we were almost all in agreement, but it was especially difficult to choose the last ones in order to understand really their intention. And personally, I think that the most important for me, looking at the illustrations, was to be touched by something. And I think each of jurors had his own criterion, but I personally focused on the originality, the sensitivity of the illustrations, the sense of the construction, the evocative or communicative ability, the consistency of the style, and the effectiveness, I think. But only finally the technique, in fact, for me, because it interests me little. because I think the technique is always at the service of the message. And a very powerful message could be lived and given with very poor media. And I think the simple techniques are very able to touch me in the same way that the very laborious or virtuose ones. In general, I prefer simple images. So I'm not a fanatic of an aesthetic perfection, because it's not that the interest for me in this way. As you saw, as you told before, the important thing in this situation was the freedom of the artist. And I find that the narrative part, considered as a block of the 5 images, it was a very important criterion for me too, because I think it was a little bit underestimated in the competition. Sometimes we found some dossier with 2, 3 or 4 images very, very strong, and at the end the last one image was breaking the harmonic
feeling. Sure, I understand.
So yeah, the harmony, and I think this point caused the elimination of some artists in the competition, and it was sad, because I think for an illustrator that want to begin now in this kind of language that is the narrative sense of the children's illustration books, it's important to have a strong narrative language.
So a strong narrative language. This can sum up what you said about the effectiveness. You said, no, that you were looking for illustrations that are effective. And I was to ask you what is effectiveness for you, but then you said it very well. You just said the narrative power of the entire proposal, if I understood well. So you went through hundreds of dossiers. These I want to underline it, because there was a huge work made also from the Bologna Children's Book Fair team. Anna Belluti, who is curator of the exhibition, was with the jurors, and she also told me about the experience, and I know that you stopped in every single dossier of every single illustrator. This is very important for us. It's important that our candidates and future candidates know it, because the work was made really with a great attention and respect for the art and from the artworks that were proposed. So thank you very much to Beatrice Alemagna for giving us an insight of what was your way of looking, your way of seeing as an artist, meeting other artists' proposals. And I would like also to remind to our audience that it will be possible to see these illustrations all in a book that will be ready soon, that is possible to buy online, is the annual Illustrators exhibition. Our book, we're very proud, there are contributions by our jury members, and the book is published in Italian and in English by Corraini, is also published by Dandelion Picture Book House in China, by CCOC in Korean, and in Japanese by JBBY, Japanese Board on Books for Young People. So it will be possible to see these illustrations on the page. Of course, in the meanwhile, we have our galleries in the Bologna Children's Book Fair online edition, where you can go and look for the finalists and for the winners. And now I would like to give the floor to Susanne Kernel. You have a huge experience in children's publishing. You were publishing important illustrators and authors like Emily Grave, Julia Donaldson, Axel Scheffler, Chris Riddle, Lane Smith, Emma Chichester Clark, among others. So your touch and your way of looking is one that is very cultivated and deep. And you brought this beautiful professional eye and of course human sensibility into this selection. And how was the experience, Susanne? What were you looking for? And also I would like to go also in the topic of your common work, because it was not only adding one individual choice to the other, it was discussing it together and sharing it together and putting your signature as a jury as a whole. So thank you, Susanne Kernel, for taking us into your experience of the process of selecting the artists for the Illustrators exhibition 2021.
Thank you, Marcella. And it was a tremendous privilege to be involved in this, having been the other side of the exhibition for so many years. I was thrilled to be part of it, and it was a great privilege to work with my fellow jurors as well. And as you say, we really did work together. We had 3,500, I think, entries to look at individually and winnow down. And like Beatrice, at first it was overwhelming. Also a great delight, I think, to be seeing so many subjects, so many techniques from so many countries. I believe there were 86 countries involved sending exhibits. And somehow, particularly during lockdown, when I personally felt that sort of visual stimulation and seeing new things was quite limited, I really enjoyed that. It gave me a great sense of, we keep using this word freedom, but it was great to look into other worlds and other minds. And I think, again, personally, I was looking for original, fresh illustrations, but like Beatrice and like all the jurors, I think, something that moved me. Sometimes one can really admire the technique and quality of an image, of a piece of artwork. And yet it seems to be all about the technique and not about the message, the emotion. I want to feel whether it's an energy and an excitement, or sadness, or humor as well, which is really important to me. In a lot of the books that I publish, I always enjoy that. So those were some of the different things that I was looking for. And then coming together as a group, when we had narrowed it down to discuss the individual entries, it was, as the others have said, really interesting to hear other views and get to know different people's systems. At one point we had a point system working, and some of us had marked high and some of us had marked low, and we had to work out what each other's systems for that were. And we changed our minds sometimes in conversation too, which I think is really important. And I think that's important for the illustrators to know that, as you say, it was not a snap decision just from one look. And in fact, most of the entries we looked at, by the time we got to the end, to the finalists, we would have gone through them together 2 or 3 times and really discussed together which we felt the worthy winners for our exhibition.
So it was a huge number of illustrations. It was more than 3,000, like 3,300 and something, like 56, 54. I don't want to go wrong, but more or less is something like this. So it's really beautiful what you said, Susanne. You said it was a chance to look in other worlds, looking in other minds. I think it's very beautiful way to sum up different professions in children's publishing, because this is what a publisher do, but is also what the scholar or a journalist do. This is what an author also do, to give a glance of your world, because you want to see also other worlds. You want to look to discover another mind. And Susanne, I think you chose a few images, and if you want to share it with us, we would be delighted to go through your little gallery with you.
So I also,
again, Alireza Guldosia, who is an acclaimed,
chosen to speak about Alireza, so I will go through this swiftly.
Sure.
But like Maria, I really love the heat coming off this image and the way the fire really reflects off the horns and the hats. It's tremendous. And then I was contrasting that with this image where you still have the fire and it's sort of split between the two. The bridge is holding the image together. And I just love the way you can just tell by the bowed heads in the boat. I don't know without the full story whether they're in hiding or whether they're sad, but you somehow know that it's under cover of darkness and they are escaping and moving on, which I really loved, really felt drawn into it. And then this piece by Giulia Maria Belli, which I just loved. This is a story about a ghost, a whisper, a spirit. And here in this first image, it's entering into her head. And I love the physicality of this, as she has shown what is really, as I say, a whisper, a thought perhaps. And yet it feels so real. And we feel that that is not a happy thought that is entering her head. I love the decisions that she has made about the shape of her images, the long, thin, the decisions she's made about the crop, the way that eye looking back is cropped at such an unusual place, which again just lends an air of mystery and somehow draws you in. And I also really loved the palette that she has used, which is so different. Oh, what's happened? Sorry.
No problem. Yes, you can go. Exactly. Great.
But you can see what a very different palette it is from the last.
Totally,
sure. And here again, we're still in the cool, and yet it's very disturbing as this, whatever it is looming over and keeping her awake. And I think really fixing her with its eyes. I think we've all had a few sleepless nights like that. And then this final image from the same entry, which shows in a way a more realistic scene, a more scene that we're more used to experiencing for ourselves in real life. But just look at the way she's treated that rain, how it's raining down. And you can just see her with the light behind her, looking out of the house door, and the way the lights are shining in the dark. I find that a really evocative image and also very beautiful. Again, it's a story that I want to know more about. And then by contrast, a much simpler image after all the drama and tension. And as I say, I really love humor in picture books. So these images from Raquel are about an animal orchestra. And here we have this little frog looking cross but determined, trying to pull a whole heap of instruments. And even the way the little cart is depicted is just so charming. Again, it's drawing me in. And those colours are just delicious and wonderful choices, how they work together and off that black background. I think that's a wonderful image. And then look at the contrast between that tiny creature and then the giant elephant breaking out of the frame and rather shyly perhaps clutching his little tiny guitar, which is just such a wonderful contrast. And again, the soft shapes, the textures, they're relatively simple images, ostensibly, as you look at it, and yet tremendous effort and thought that has gone into the placement of those shapes to create that character and that emotion. I just love that elephant. And I think, is that enough from me?
Well, it's so beautiful to listen how you talk about children's books. I'm enchanted by your precision of looking and precision of talking about what a good illustration is, what a good narrative visual work is in children's publishing. And I would like to ask you many things, but I will just ask you one little thing. And you mentioned humor, which is very important in children's books as in children sensibility. And it's something that is not always mentioned enough, in my opinion. We just closed the year devoted to Gianni Rodari, great author, Italian author, and also who made reflections about the world of culture for children, and he would mention humor. So did you find enough humor, or as a publisher you would want to look more for it in, for example, young illustrators? Susanna.
I think humor can take so many forms. I mean, there's sort of quite slapstick, obvious humor that's very instant. But I also enjoy books and stories and illustrators who have a real, what I would call, wit to their work, which doesn't necessarily mean that you turn the page and have a belly laugh, although that's great too sometimes, but just something of the spirit that comes off the page that's joyful. But I do also really enjoy humor, and I think one of the ways that can happen sometimes in a picture book can be the way the text, the words, work against the picture. So you might read something quite straight and then you see something quite different happening in the illustration. And I think with this competition, of course, we are focusing specifically on the illustration, and so we don't always get the subtlety of that connection that might be there in a whole book. But yes, I think humor it's something I enjoy, and I think it's should be part of all our lives. I don't think it's the only thing that should be in picture books. I think it's also important to be sharing sadness and loneliness, and all those other emotions which children feel. But I like to think for younger children with some sense of optimism and hope sort of within that, which I've talked a lot and I haven't really answered your question, but in terms of was there much in the exhibition, I'm not sure that there was as much humor. I don't know if the others would agree with me, as maybe some other things. There's quite a lot of intensity, I would say, in the work, and sometimes it was really nice to come across something just a bit lighter, just to really lift the spirits.
Sure, and I also have another curiosity. Maybe also Maria can answer to me if you want. Did you find the sign of time, the sign of pandemic in the proposals of this year? Because I have to say that we were really happy of the number of candidates, of submissions. Probably the fact that this year the submission was online, it was not only a barrier, but it could also be an help for those who normally go and have to put the artworks and send it. In a way, it made, as in also other shades of it, our community stronger or active, very active. And so did you find the sign of pandemic of the story?
So, actually, it's a great question, and I wonder if, as Suzanne mentioned, there wasn't quite as much humor as we might have liked. We often found something funny and we said, "Oh, this one is witty, how wonderful," you know. And I wonder if that is not because of the pandemic. It just wasn't the mood of this year for all of us around the world. And in fact, we did have several entries that we liked that were specifically about life under quarantine, life during the pandemic. That was, you know, we had to take that into account. That they were especially relevant, but in a weird way, we didn't want them to be too specific, because we're all hoping this will be, we were at the point of wishing it would go away and not wanting it to be too much present. So, but yeah, I mean, we often thought that, as Suzanne said, there was a real seriousness of tone to many, probably the majority of the entries, and intensity. There was just as Suzanne used that word, intensity, which I think is perfect. And we did often say that they reflect the moment that we're in, you know, and possibly even if they were work that was finished before the quarantines and the lockdowns started, perhaps they were chosen by the artists because they captured to submit, because they were appropriate for this really terrible period that we were going through. So that is true, and it could be that in next year's exhibition will be full of laughter and wit and humor, and because everyone will be submitting work that represents the beginnings of the liberation that we're all beginning to feel now.
Yeah, but it's really interesting. Thank you, Maria Russo. It's very interesting what you say, because when we talk about the art of picture book and the art of illustration, we're talking also about an historical document. So it's something that mirror many different aspects of life and culture of children and grown-ups. So thank you very much for this. And now I would like to go to attack. Georg, I am Georg Barber, a great artist, published many important books, and also published from New Yorker, the New York Times, and also professor of illustration. So Georg, how was your experience? How was what you found? What were you looking for in your experience?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, for me it was I was very proud about that I'm a member of the jury. It was because I'm not so in the children book scene. I make some children books, but I'm more from the art or illustration scene. So for me, it was a big experiment, and I enjoyed it really much. It was, everybody thought it was over 3,300 candidates. But for me, I had a lot of fun, and to see so many different techniques, styles, the culture influence, and it was very inspired for me. Sometimes is the work in the jury very boring, but this was full of give me a lot of energy. So I was very happy to be a part of this jury work.
And when you were looking to all the submissions, I guess there are at least two perspectives, one of the artist and one of the teacher, for example.
But I'm never looking as a teacher. It's I'm looking, when I was looking the work of the candidates, I was looking if it touched me, I see something, it's not boring, is it full of humor, it's also something poetic. What for me very important is it was more personal feeling. It was not that I'm a teacher and I can say is it right or is it wrong.
So it's like that would be a good teacher going for feelings, right?
I don't know. Something. It's really dependent. It's not, I think, from the art scene. You don't have this is good or this is bad. It's really and from the background and from the context. And I think this is all the same also in the illustration. everybody from the jury thought that we was looking and the proposal, we was reading the biography, and I think it's very important, the background also, not only the image. I think it's the first key to come in the work, but then it's very important in this context and from the culture and stuff like this.
I know that you would like to take us into some of the images that you liked more. So, for example, we might go to see.
Yeah, it was for me. I think I'm very happy and satisfied and enjoy the last selection. I think they are very good work. So it's not so that
Fantastic.
but I had an interview with the Japan colleague, and then they asked me to select some work what I like, and I was looking, and it was one was Umeko,
Okay.
and then another was Tomoko, and both I recognized later that came from Japan. And what I like is and this was a little sad. I think Beatrice taught us that we can't see the work in reality. We don't have
Yes, sure.
of the material. We can't smell this or so. But and also for me was very interesting the balance between analog and digital work. So, and I prefer more. But it's my personal test. Analog work. It's not so clean, and I'm kind of tired about the digital work. It's so. But this what I found. It's some poetic, and it's good in the painting from the color. And for me, sometimes here you can see in the background the rabbit. It's for me kind of humor, and I like it. So, and I think another example, it's like the same. It's very it's touched me, and I don't know what is the story, but I feel there is something, and I really enjoy it and like it.
We can show also another author. I think it is, which is the other one? Tomoko.
Tomoko, yeah, here.
She.
Here. Okay, thank you.
And I like here also the atmosphere, the technique, and it's something touch me. So it's and it's good in handwork, and it's good in the composition. So this is so my favorite. Yeah.
And if you want, we can show also one more. There is one more you wanted to show. Attack is very beautiful to watch at pictures with you. It's a great privilege, I might say.
I'm not sure.
Yes, I am totally. And there was another one that you liked. I don't find my note, Georg, on the chat, but please stop me.
I will look. No.
I have to say that it's very exciting year after year to see the selection of these names. And even when some of these are very young artists, then we see them growing year after year. Later on, there will be the announcement of the Illustrators Illustration Award for International Illustration Award, the Bologna Children's Book Fair and Fondazione SEM, for example, and that is someone that is chosen among the selected, the winners, as we call it, from this year. So it's a great showcase. It's a great possibility for the artists to show their world and their art. And we see names that then...
Yeah, I can see it, yes. Fumi Aizawa. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it was for me the same what I told. There is something poetic in the color from it's very light and it's not so strong and direct. It's something more, I think, from from the another side. I like it really. Very soft and playful.
Yeah.
Yeah, this yeah, I like it very much.
Very poetical and sensitive, and yes, and so it's if I understood well, it's an aesthetic and poetic quality that you are looking for. So
This was the
sensibility.
work where I'm very in touch. I think I like the another work of the selection. I'm very enjoy it, and I think it's very good work. Also.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Georg. And of course, when we meet in person, we have hundreds of people in front of us. Normally, we are at the Illustrators Cafe. But I have to say, is very excited also to have the possibility of talking with this new channel, but also concentration. I think it's different. I'm enjoying it. I hope you are, and I hope our audience is. And as I said, Kyoko Matsuoka, great friend of Bologna Children's Book Fair and now director of Itabashi Museum, is not with us in person, but she sent a video. So I would like to leave the floor to her video contribution, and I thank Arianna, our technic help, to launch the video for us. Kyoko Matsuoka.
Hello, my name is Kyoko Matsuoka, one of the jury members. Please forgive me for not being able to participate in person today. I am the director of the Itabashi Art Museum in Itabashi City, Tokyo. The traveling exhibition of the Illustrators exhibition in Japan started in 1987. In 1989, I became the organizer. Usually, the exhibition in Japan is held after the exhibition in Bologna in 4 to 5 art museums. In 2020, unfortunately, the exhibition couldn't be held in Bologna, but in Japan, we have been able to continue the exhibition, following, of course, strict measures due to the pandemic. 2021 exhibition will also be held in Japan at our museum, starting from the 17th of July up till the 15th of August. We are now planning many events to accompany the show. For the Illustrators exhibition, this year has been a year of great change. This competition has been based firmly on judging original artworks, but this year, for the first time in its history, the participants were told to send their works digitally. The judging process was also done completely online. We are all very worried at the beginning, but when we finished, we realized that all 5 of us were able to connect to each other, and most of all, that we have been able to come up with a great selection. I would like to thank the Bologna Book Fair for its decision to continue this exhibition no matter what. I would also like to thank the illustrators for having participated with such beautiful artwork. Today, I would like to talk about 3 illustrators. Their illustrations will help me give some suggestions to those of you who want to work on picture books. One of the most important things for an artist of picture book is to be able to draw pictures that tell a story. I think Hideki Nishioka's works are a good example. He is from Japan. I was attracted to these illustrations right from the beginning. They are subtle drawings done with a black pen. There is a cat and a little mouse in a train station at night. Who are they? You can feel that something is about to happen just by looking at the pictures. That is a pose that makes you want to turn the page of a book. You must not forget that a picture book tells a story with many pages. For an illustrator of picture books, it is important to maintain the same quality in all of the pages. Hideki Nishika's 5 illustrations, we can feel his aesthetic ability. The next artist is Amir Shabanipour. In these days, the 80s are a trend, not only in art, but also in fashion and music. The 80s is a time when we started to use computers also in art. The first time that the word computer graphics is mentioned in the Illustrators exhibition annual is in 1990. Amir Shabanipur comes from Iran. His selected works pay a tribute to digital art of the 80s. This kind of pixel art is used mainly in graphic art for video games in the 70s up till the 90s. This style, which seems old and new at the same time, can also be seen in contemporary art. Amir's works, therefore, is a good example in which you can see art and the aesthetic of contemporary art reflected in the picture books. The third artist is Simon Abadie from Spain. His works have been submitted in the non-fiction category, and it is a story about refugees. Each year, we see works that deal with social issues among the submissions. As adults, when we hand children a picture book, we should be handing down hope for the future. When society is hit by a big crisis, children's books also reflect the damage. In 2011, Japan experienced a terrible earthquake and tsunami, which caused the tragic nuclear power plant accident. During those uncertain times, many picture books that depicted the preciousness of daily life were published. When an author of children's books desires to convey a message with care, he or she usually doesn't express the message directly. The message is often conveyed through the telling of a story, so it can touch our heart. Picture books can tell us what is happening, make us think, help us build a hopeful future. I have not yet seen Simon's finished picture book based on these illustrations, but I'm looking very forward to reading it. I would like to end my comments on the selection by repeating that the picture book is a powerful medium that can build the future. We were in our second year of life inside our homes under the pandemic. I would like to thank all the artists that are interested in making picture books and that have sent their works to this exhibition in these difficult times. I'm looking very forward to seeing you all in person in Bologna. At the end of my speech, I would like to send my heartfelt greetings to my colleagues, Maria, Suzanne, Georg, and Beatrice. I miss you. Ciao!
This very beautiful message by Kyoko Matsuoka, who is a friend and colleague and who also transmitted how beautiful and intense was the human experience. I want to say thank you to Georg Barber, who has to leave for a very important reason. So go to the little son. And thank you very much for your time and your work, Georg Barber Attack. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we remain just for a few minutes because I think we have said many things, but I was watching. We have many people listening to us from many different countries. I have to say it's very exciting. And I also found 2 questions. The 2 questions are by Agatha Lucic, who says, what is your advice for young illustrator how to stand out with your illustration work? I think that Beatrice Alemagna, in a way, she answered before to this question, but if you want to add something, maybe Maria or also Suzanne or also Beatrice, if you have one advice quick to give, something more than we already said. Thank you for that.
Maybe I just can add a thing that I forgot to mention before about the sincerity, la sincerità, sincerity.
Yes.
The real feelings we can experience when we are drawing. In fact, I think it's important to stay near to something who we can express and we can say with simplicity. I think it's important. Don't go to the word very complicated, or you don't know at all. Try to stay near to your inside and your
very beautiful. Try to stay close and near to your inside. Yes, very beautiful. And did you want to add something, Maria or Susanne? Do you have an advice for young illustrators?
I think that Beatrice put it perfectly. Stay connected to your own heart and your own passion.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful. And there's also another question that is interesting. We just talked about, we said something about that, but the question was, what have you seen differently this year in the work of illustrators? Do you think that the themes or techniques have changed? We said something about that. I don't know if you want to add something, maybe Susanne or Beatrice or even Maria.
I think one of the joys of doing this was just seeing the variety that is out there. And as I said, coming from 86 different countries was a real privilege to see that. And there was just so much different techniques and styles and subjects. We had people making models and taking photographs of them. We had purely digital. We had, as others have said, sort of handmade artwork, which I think we all really appreciate, using different media. And
Georg spoke a little bit about, we're at this moment where you do have the digital and the what he was calling analog, or Suzanne is calling handmade, together in one exhibition and in our world now. And so it is an interesting choice for an artist to realize you have these very, very different possibilities for your work. But the thing to remember is, as Suzanne said, we possibly do favor, in some ways, the handmade only because it's easier that way to show your personal mark, your personal touch. It can sometimes come across more powerfully. So, we would just say, if you're working digitally, that's fine and great. There's plenty of digital work that we chose, but and especially the one that Kyoko just highlighted, that wonderful 80s throwback. But just to be aware that the effects that you're creating still come across in that personal handmade or just powerful way, and doesn't seem like just shortcut.
And I would just say that it's not one thing or the other. I mean, so many artists these days use the computer as just another tool, and in different ways. And I'm sure Beatrice has more to say about that than I have.
Yes, actually, Beatrice could probably speak about that too. That these different ways.
I'm not interested by the technique. In fact, as I told before, for me the effect is the most important thing. You can make it with analog illustration or techniques illustration. I don't know, even if just a line. You can the example you shown in the beginning of the meeting about the, you know, the graphic design of these plants with some little dots and some little things, you know, you can really tell a story with very poor image. So I'm not in the problematic. For me, it's not a problem.
I have to say it's very, very beautiful to have a little glance in what was your discussion. So great level of everything, I would say, of human sensibility and culture and experience in children's publishing as artistic touch and look to the art of the illustrators that submitted their work. I want to say, going to conclusion, that in the Illustrators Cafe, as in the program of the Bologna Children's Book Fair Special Edition, online edition, there will be much more going on, and later on there will be the announcement of prize and awards with illustrators selected among the winners of the Illustrators exhibition. Winners, and in order to conclude, I just want to say that there are some keywords that you said that were very beautiful, and you was talking about a range of different styles and freedom, joy, independence. Maria Russo pointed out this important point among others, so that would be also advice for future illustrators and encouragement also for established illustrators that we always welcome with pleasure. And Beatrice Alemagna was talking about the narrative power, the evocative power of illustration with simplicity. You also said it now, which is important. You say even a poor illustration that looks poor is not sophisticated but is simple. It requires a huge amount of talent. And Suzanne, this beautiful expression to glance, to look into another mind, and also looking for humor, spirit, intensity, the beat, Maurice Sendak would call it. And also Attack, who said it was very beautiful to listen it, also with, like, as a consultant of Bologna Children's Book Fair, a jury, an artist like him, a jury who says is inspiring to go to the process, which is very beautiful and a privilege for us to listen about. And Attack was talking about the touch, the humor again, the feeling, the poetic dimension that we look for into illustrations. And Kyoko Matsuoka, in her little contribution, would talk about the connection that was built with this expression. So I would like to close with this word, so to the word connection and community, because it's for the work of you all with us of the Bologna Children's Book Fair, and thanks to the work of the fabulous illustrators who submitted their work, that we are here and we will be here talking and working about international children's publishing. So thank you very much, Maria Russo, Susan Kernel, Beatrice Alemagna, Attack, and Kyoko Matsuoka.
It was great to work with Maria and Suzanne and Kyoko and Gorg. Really, it was a really good experience for me, very touching. Before we were so different in the beginning, and we learned to each other how we could make our selection, our common selection. So it was a very big experience for me. Thank you.
It was a total privilege for me to be with these experienced and brilliant people on this jury. So I hope everyone enjoys the exhibition as much as we enjoyed putting it together.
Yeah, I can only add to all of that.
Okay, I have also more and more messages here in the chat. I see it now. Just thank you, congratulations. You chose such beautiful work. It is a great exhibition. Congratulations from many different countries. It's exciting. We learned a lot also in these circumstances. So thank you very much for being together. Thank you to the audience. And of course, next year we will be all together physically. In the meanwhile, we stay connected. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Marcella, for being such a wonderful moderator.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you.
Bye.